on?
We're on the internet?
We're on the internet.
Hold up,
Holy
internet.
crap. Let's do it. We
Shout
ready?
out Vanilla Porter
We're
Jr.
ready.
The Vanilla Porter Jr. What is up, everybody? Welcome to the DNVR Nuggets podcast, part of the DNVR podcast network, I guess.
Sounds good to me.
We are wrapping up our first live show of the NBA season. I am joined, of course, today by Harrison Wind.
What's going on, guys? 1-0, 82-0, still on the table.
Still on the table.
102-0 is still on the
102-0.
Ooh.
Got to include the playoffs and the preseason.
It's not an 82-game mentality anymore, guys.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Seated to my far left from DNVR Broncos, but filling in tonight to help us analyze this game, Ryan Koenigsberg.
I just wanted to be a part of a win. I wanted to know what it's like to cover a winning team.
This is foreign territory for him.
Feels good, doesn't it?
Feels really nice.
Feels
yeah.
really nice. And then, of course, seated to my right, the man himself, the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. 5000, Brendan Vogt.
So truly thrilled to be here. I can't lose this job.
I thought you might big time us on this
What's that?
podcast, this post-game show after getting to 5K.
I was
tonight.
going to, but my ego's been placed back. I can't figure out Periscope still.
Yeah.
I like how you were dressed as a homeless, jobless person just in case it happened.
Yeah. That's what you were going for, right?
The line on the fashion jokes. We're finding it. We're getting close. You want to know what hurts Brendan's feelings? We'll get there.
It's not this. It can't be this. This is DNVR Studio C, or the lounge set as we call it here. I hope you like what we've done with the place. We love this set. We hope to utilize it a lot throughout the season for live post-game shows, live mailbag events, just something live to interact with the audience, talk about some of the cool stuff in real time. And that's what we're going to do tonight because there's a lot of momentum. I am feeling an enormous amount of just energy and positivity because the Nuggets completely sucked and somehow got a road win anyway against a rival. I guess let's just start with this. Is this a bad win or a good win?
This is a good win. This
Okay.
is a good win. You remember that stat I tried to reel off on the show the other day that Portland had won like a bunch of home openers in a row?
Oh, that's right. What was it, 19?
It was
18.
18, not
so now
19.
they're 18-1 in their last 19 home openers.
Oh, my God, that's so beautiful.
Is that
But
surprising?
no,
though?
for Denver to come out like they did and for Jokic to have the first quarter that he did and still get a win, any way they could have gotten a win tonight would have been a good win after that.
That was, I mean, in Portland, too. Like,
Yeah,
Portland
a
has never
tough
been
place to
kind
play.
to the Nuggets. You end up with, like, a nightmarish start. I mean, we all came into the office. We're, like, all excited for Nuggets basketball. All of a sudden, Nikola Jokic is just ripped from our hands, and we're just, like, in shock.
I
Like,
thought they were going to get killed.
Yeah, it was certainly on the table. And before we go too much further, I'm contractually obligated to tell you that baseball bat on the wall is for sale. So if you need,
Is that true?
yeah,
Wow,
that's out of left field.
Man, what a seamless
way to tie it
plug.
back into baseball.
We've had a great first couple of months, but seriously, everything's for sale.
RK is just here to, like, plug and promote things, like, randomly.
DM me if you want to buy that Andres Galarraga used and signed bat.
Where does the Big Cat rank in Colorado
Is
sports
that why you
nicknames?
wanted to come on the
Yeah,
podcast?
I
Is that
just
it?
needed to get a plug in for the bat.
Do you have anything on Mel Tucker, or are you good to go?
Yeah, Mel Tucker, the GOAT.
Brendan, what do you think? Was this a good win or a bad win?
It's a great win because it was almost a terrible loss in the way, right? But
Yeah.
that, like Harrison said, Portland usually wins that game at home. Most teams do. The home opener, winning that game as the road team is harder than it's given credit for. Given the slow start, given no Jokic, I mean, I think you saw Denver's starters outplay Portland's. You saw Denver's bench outplay theirs at times. You just got to feel confident that a D-plus game from Denver was enough for a win on the road on night one.
Malone last season, I mean, we all know Malone runs hot, right? I mean, he's happy about like 4 games a year. I mean, the rest of the games he's upset about something. But one thing, and he talked about this last year, one thing he learned was just learning how to accept a win and move on, right? Mm-hmm. And this is a game that I think Malone really has to be like, there was a million things that drove him mad today. But you have to look at it and be like, we won. We'll go to the tape and get better, but don't stew over a win. Just accept wins when they come to you, no matter how they come.
For sure. And I think a big reason Denver won this game was because Denver's bench, no surprise, is really good again.
Dominant.
And it's going to be one of the best benches in the league. Portland's bench is potentially one of the worst benches in the league. And
Yeah.
we saw that in the second quarter when Denver initially got back into this thing. And then in the second half as well, that stood out.
Can we stop pumping the brakes here real quick? Because somebody has to push this. I don't think this is a hot take. Denver has the best bench. They've
That's
got
not a hot
yes,
take.
they've
They
got
had the best bench for the first half of last year too.
But
And then they added
you just
Jeremy
said they'll
Grant.
have one of, and and I'm not trying to like harp on you for this, but this is one of those things where we always hedge this bet. Denver is good because they have so much depth. They have Jokic, they have 1 star,
Yeah.
and they have all of these really good players, not just like average guys or whatever, but really good players. So
Right.
they have I saw that take on Twitter just on the timeline, like Denver might have the best bench. No, they clearly do.
Can we, off the top of your heads, who else would be in that ballpark?
Maybe Toronto.
Toronto?
Yeah, I mean,
Clippers.
Yeah,
Clippers
they
have
have,
a great
they have
bench.
like high
Yeah,
profile
Lou
players.
and Harrell.
If you said Denver has the best depth, I think that would be better because the Clippers have some guys that are like role players that start, and then they're like Lou Williams is one of their better players, but he comes off the bench. Denver starts their 5 best guys. They just happen to bring in a wave of 5 other awesome guys.
Yeah, as we're sitting here and Jokic goes out, like one of the thoughts was, okay, now it's on Murray. Let's see if Murray can do it, and that didn't actually end up being the
No.
case. It was the bench and the role players who just like all came in and kind of did a little piece and chipped away instead of Murray just taking the whole team on his back.
But don't you guys feel like that was the takeaway from preseason outside of the MPJ stuff? I mean, like, I actually gleaned the most from what we might consider garbage time.
Okay.
Denver's final 7 players were just better by a lot than anyone
Oh,
else
yeah.
on the floor every
Yeah.
game. I was Googling guys on the other teams. Denver has rotation players fighting for minutes.
A couple guys stood out like specifically on the bench tonight, but how about Torrey Craig going 4-6 from the field and knocking home 2 threes?
Yeah, how
Big
about it,
time.
Adam?
If anybody
I give
had
credit where it's
Torrey
due.
Craig knocking down, 19-foot mid-range jumpers from the top of the key, you win.
So let's start with these big topics here. And first I want to plug, if you guys are watching this, submit your questions on Periscope or Twitter. We're going to get to those. We're going to do a bunch of questions in today's show. But let's start by some of these big topics. Number 1, Jokic was really concerning in the first 3 minutes of this game.
Until he wasn't.
It picked up, so he gets 2 fouls early, and, I thought he looked really slow. I thought that those fouls that he got were sort of fouls from being out of position and just a little bit unfocused. When you're a little bit slow, a little, a half step behind in the NBA, you pick up fouls. He picks up the 2. Malone trusts him, leaves him in there, and he doesn't reward Malone's trust. He ends up doing a really dumb 3rd foul. Yeah. Let's just start with the first half. What do you make of that from Jokic? Is this like a concerning thing, or is this just a one-off?
It's one game. I don't think you can be concerned about it at all. My read on his first couple of minutes, it's like he was so aggressive, it felt like. It seemed like he was going at Whiteside every single time he got the ball in his hands. And that is pretty unlike Jokic from watching him over the last couple of years. Even when he's at the peak of his powers in the playoffs, that really wasn't how he played. So it just kind of seemed like an odd game from him from the start. And then, the foul trouble kind of got him out of a rhythm for obviously the first half. But I would not be like overly concerned about this if you're asking me that.
One thing about it, though, real quick, Ryan, we talked in the preseason about, Jokic looks like he doesn't care, right? This was your thing, Brendan, the whole time.
Yep.
And, I actually kind of slightly disagreed with it, but it was preseason. It wasn't like, I just thought he looked slow. I didn't think it was, he's too good for the preseason. There's always a little bit of that, but I thought he looked slow. And then that first half tonight, I was like, and even in parts of the second half, I was thinking, man, he kind of looks the exact same. That's the only reason I say it's a concern.
So I think the question is, okay, well, will he just play his way back into shape, or is that an actual concern?
Yeah.
He wants to be this heavy, right? I mean, that's our
He
maybe
wants
not this
to be heavy.
He
Yeah,
wants to be
big,
heavier
yeah.
rather than thin. He wants to lean into guys. It did seem like a problem on the defensive end tonight. Not one worth fretting over. I mean, he played an almost poor game and was the best player on the floor, but like it did seem like on defense it mattered. He was even slower than usual.
And it might have been a thing of where he had 3 fouls. You play differently when you have those fouls. He wasn't in rhythm. He sat for an entire half. And so it could be all those things. And we do have to talk about, so we don't want to rag on Jokic. Obviously, he was incredible down the stretch tonight. Jokic, just where he stands as the superstar, these are the types of things. And I'm not trying. Don't confuse my words here. He's not LeBron James. He's not these type of guys. But this was a very
better, probably.
But this was a superstar performance where it's like superstars, no matter how bad they are, the final 5 minutes or 8 minutes, you're just like, well, it doesn't matter. He's 0 for 20. It doesn't matter. We're still going with him. This was that game for Jokic because when it mattered, it turned into that guy again.
That's what was so awesome about it, because remember back in the days when Nuggets fans so badly wanted to believe you didn't need a superstar, like back in the Danilo Gallinari and all those guys, and you wanted so badly to believe you don't need a superstar. games like this are exactly why you do, because you played a pretty sloppy game throughout. Nothing was pretty. Nothing was easy for them on offense. And then all of a sudden, when push comes to shove, Nikola Jokic just becomes the best player on the floor and takes him home.
Plus 14 tonight, 20 points, 13 rebounds, only 2 assists, surprisingly. 8 of 14 shooting, 3 of 5 from the three-point line, and a team-high plus 14.
And pretty much all of that came in the second half. All of it did.
21 minutes did. He played 3 minutes in the first half.
Yeah.
I mean, it truly is a remarkable thing. We're so lucky to have this dude.
It's weird. A guy at 80, 90% still gets you dubs, right? I mean, he just doesn't have to be at 100. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of players who maybe have Jokic's ceiling, but I think maybe more so than other stars, his bad games win you games.
Yeah.
And that's incredible.
Jamal Murray appeared to hurt his hand in this game. I think we all were looking for sort of a big Murray game in this one. He just seemed like he was primed for it. 4 of 14 shooting, 14 points, 6 assists, 5 rebounds. So the stat line, 14, 5, and 6. Not that bad. But
Well, I mean, he's 4 of 14, though.
yeah, that part's not great.
Yeah.
What did you think of
You
him?
got to think his hand was hurting him a little bit because he just did not look really ready to shoot
No.
when he was, getting the ball out on the three-point line. And I wasn't really impressed with Murray's preseason at all. I didn't really seem like he had taken any significant steps. But, yeah, it's preseason. You don't want to draw too many conclusions from it. But he really looked like that same player tonight that he looked like in the preseason. So I haven't really seen any growth from him in any aspect of his game yet. Of course, it's still early. Look, they've had 4 preseason games, 1 regular season game, but I haven't seen any specific growth that I can really point to yet.
One thing I'd love to see from Jamal is almost what I just said about Jokic. What is he contributing when his A game isn't there in terms of a score?
Mm-hmm.
He did have 6 assists tonight,
Yeah.
and I do think he's elevating that baseline. There were times last year where a bad Jamal game was a net negative.
Yeah, that's true.
I'd like
Yep.
to see the leap this year where even if he's average or below average, you'd still rather have him out there on the floor. So the assists were the silver lining, but otherwise, kind of a classic start from him, right?
And there was a point in that, I think it was just the beginning of the fourth quarter when they went back to the starters with Jeremy Grant, where Jamal had some
Love
good
that lineup.
moments, especially
Yeah.
the 2-man game with Jokic.
Yes.
That was his
Yep.
best stretch of
Yep.
basketball, and that was one of the Nuggets' better stretches of basketball of the night.
One of the things you can say about this Nuggets team is they get to that level, even if it's only for like 3 or 4 possessions in a row. And that Jeremy Grant, when he checked in, there was like 4 or 5 possessions where it was just like, oh yeah, look at this, the ball's popping. They're getting the wide open shots, they're getting stopped.
Mhm.
They just look like boom, 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 making these plays where it's wide open shots.
And you had said in the preseason you were worried you weren't going to see enough of that lineup. You think that maybe them playing really well during that stretch when it was in there will influence Mike Malone to go to it a little more?
Not one game, no. I do think we'll see it some, and I was really encouraged that the Nuggets went to it tonight at that moment because that was a pivotal moment.
Yep.
That was sort of a game-turning moment for the Nuggets there, and so I'm encouraged that they went to it. But I think it's going to be one of those things where it's 5-6 minutes here, and over time, especially if it plays like it did tonight, over time the numbers are going to bear out. Hey, this is a thing you can do to really. That's a lineup in the NBA. The Millsap Jokic lineup, it's so consistent. It's so steady. That Grant Jokic lineup is going to be the swing for the fence lineup. And I don't think it's going to strike out a lot. I think its floor is pretty good too. But it's going to have those moments where it's like 8-0 run, boom, in 1 minute.
And I just want to start bringing the people in here a little bit. We got a lot on Periscope.
Let's do it.
Q-Tip 1283.
Q-Tip.
If that's a reference to what I think it is, massive shouts. Wants to point out Murray did hit some huge open threes when they needed.
No, he did,
And
yeah.
when wide open catch and shoot, bizarrely was maybe a question mark for Murray at times in the last couple of years. Those were dead on, and those were big shots.
Yeah. Going back to what you're saying about Jeremy
forget you,
Grant.
Q-Tip.
Yeah, sorry.
Thanks, Q-Tip.
Good point, though.
Murray
Q-Tip.
has another
Good
point
moments.
over here I
shouldn't
want to
hate
go
on
to.
Murray that much. He had some good moments tonight for sure.
Yeah, I actually thought he was fine minus the shooting.
Maybe the first half kind of stuck with me. But when you have Jeremy Grant in there, you can really see the different things he brings to the table than Millsap. He just puts so much more pressure on the defense
Yes.
when he's diving to the rim,
Yes.
in transition as well. I mean, Portland didn't know what to do with him. They were just fouling him whenever he was attacking the rim.
And above the rim, because one of the things that Denver does with Jokic when the ball's popping is they force guys to cover a lot of ground. And if you have to cover a lot of ground and vertically a lot of ground, it's just hard. And he had a couple of those offensive rebounds or tipped the ball or whatever that kept the ball alive. Give us another one.
Okay, yeah.
That was a great question, Q-Tip, despite what Harrison said.
Yeah, if we don't, oh no.
Oh, God, our social media guy has crashed.
lost them.
Did he really lose it?
I did.
Well, let's talk about another one that I think is kind of key here. Gary Harris not that great tonight.
Allie, let me see your phone.
8 points. He did have 2 steals. He had 5 turnovers. If you would have told me like guess a problem Gary Harris is going to have in the preseason and season this year, turnovers would have been like 20th on my list of guesses.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm ready, guys. That's good because our first question from Shane Sco: should we be concerned with Gary Harris? So
that's a good way of phrasing it.
As
Thanks.
you were.
I screwed up the phrasing, so thank you, Shane Sco. Ryan, what do you think?
I'm not worried about him. He's it's weird for him to have gaps in his game where that you don't normally see. Like he normally plays smart. He normally is a good passer.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's just it has to just be rust. Like that's what I'm gonna write it off to tonight. It's a little rusty. You would like to see him capitalize on momentum. Like he makes that shot. It feels like he never gets into like full on heat mode, or rarely gets into full on heat mode. He hit that first 3, and you're like, oh, here you go.
And then he
Right.
took 2 more right away.
Oh, I thought they were both in too.
Yeah, and they both did look. I think they were both back rim, which as a shooter,
You
always
think the
hurts.
game is different if he like hits those and he's 9 points in 1 minute? I mean,
Potentially,
yeah.
stuff like that stuff like that can change games.
What'd you think though overall about him tonight?
Gary, not a great game. One of probably the worst games he's played like over the last couple of years, to be honest.
It's at least fully healthy. I mean, so should we be concerned? I mean, last year we chalked up with him and Barton both. We chalked up a lot of this to injury.
Yeah,
fully healthy now by all accounts.
It's one game.
Yeah, I agree.
It's one game, 35 minutes that he played.
Oh my God! Woof.
Yeah, Stars played a lot tonight because they came back at the beginning of the 4th.
You know, before we get to another break, I think it's beer time.
Yeah, let's have a drink.
Let's have a drink.
Are you sure
What kind of drink are we
you guys
having?
don't want any questions?
Were we waiting?
We need a break. We have to take a break.
We were supposed to wait for this moment.
Let's go to the
CJ
questions.
Twin 94. Do you guys think Grant starts at some point this year? We've talked about this a lot,
Yeah,
but
we
let's
have
talk about
talked
it
about
after
this
a great
lot.
night. Let's talk about it after a great night.
Yes, in the games, the 20 or so games Millsap does not play this year, he'll start. Outside of that, I don't think so. I mean, again, Millsap and Jokic are always good. They have been good for 2 years, very, very consistently. They were good tonight. They're a good lineup. Jeremy Grant's going to be really, really good, and I think going forward will be that guy. But it's not going to happen. I did. How many minutes did he play tonight? 21. So we wondered about the breakdown. Millsap 32 minutes tonight. Jeremy Grant 21. To me, that is the number that probably will be an anomaly.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think we'll see Grant get into the starting lineup if Paul Millsap is healthy. I think that's the right call too. Grant can play more minutes than Millsap game by game. Doesn't mean necessarily has to start, but he could be on the floor to end games.
I find it to be really interesting when Michael Malone went to that lineup, though.
Yeah,
tonight. Like,
it's
that
when
was,
he really needed to.
Right, and that was, as you pointed out during the game, that's normally when the bench is in.
Yeah.
There's 10 minutes in the fourth quarter, and he rolls out like the power lineup.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a power move from Mike Malone.
And a crucial game-saving, game-swinging stretch from Grant there.
So that's where he only played 21 minutes, but he was out there in that moment we all thought was so pivotal, and he was great in it. So, I am curious to see sort of the evolution of Grant's minutes. Obviously, we'll talk about Michael Porter Jr. later, but both of those guys, they're a big part of why I think the Nuggets will just be so different as the season kind of unfolds. But I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing kind of unfolding this very, very slowly. You know who's also in like preseason form still? My mentions. Because tonight, Will Barton misses one shot at the end of the he took So last night I was with you.
And
Tonight
we're accepting the large possibility that we're biased, but sometimes it's like Twilight Zone stuff, man.
I mean, he took 8 shots. I mean,
3.
It's pretty bad. Does that make you nervous about other better bigs out west?
Whiteside always has good games against Denver somehow because I don't think he's necessarily like an above-average starting center. But No, I wouldn't be concerned.
We haven't talked much at all about like who the Nuggets play to. Like, it feels like we're evaluating the Nuggets against the Nuggets.
Oh yes, I love this. Great take.
And
Great take,
they
RK.
played like a